I'm Linda Tischler. I'm the senior editor at Fast Company magazine, where my beat is devoted to the intersection of business and design. At about the same time that Barbara discovered Yves, he was also on my radar screen because, I spend a year curating that issue of the magazine, looking for new faces and the people who are really at the cutting edge of that field, where it's not just good design, but it's actually great business as well. And so, this was probably 2007. I traveled out to San Francisco to meet up with Yves to do a cover story. And I'm going to let Yves talk about his work here in a minute, but since you've come at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, you deserve a little story. So I was in Yves' studio in San Francisco, Fuse Project. We spent the morning talking. I heard all about his projects. At the time, he was doing 1 laptop per child, which was an amazing project with Nicholas Negroponte in the MIT Media Lab. And he was working on Jawbone, which was one of those geeky headsets that you'd see people walking down the street talking to themselves, but he made it look like jewelry, and you actually coveted like this geeky little tech project. So we spent the morning talking about all the wonderful things going on, and then I went out to lunch with his business partner, Hossein Rahman, who was from Jawbone, and we had a lovely lunch, and I came back after lunch, and the office is empty. You probably don't even remember this. Nobody is there. I'm like, what's going on? I thought we were supposed to reconvene after lunch. Then I realized that everybody is gathered in a conference room. And Yves I can see through the little window in the conference room that Yves is at the end of the table, and his entire staff is gathered around the table, and I'm going and so he says, just a minute. So he comes out, and I said, what's happening here? He says, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, but the state of California mandates that every year or at some point, every company do a sexual harassment training workshop, and we've decided that this is the time we're going to do it. And I said, well, why? He said, well, we just landed a big new client, and we have a lot of women designers, and I figured I better do it now. And I said, oh, who's the client? He said, Jimmy Jane. I said, okay. You may not be familiar with the brand. Very high-end, beautifully designed products for women's pleasure, all pleasure to the people. Mm-hmm. And so in anticipation of starting this project, Yves presciently did that, and I think avoided lawsuits.
Touch wood or plastic? No, we never have had lawsuits. But it was, I completely forgot that story.
You probably just blanked it out.
But I remember now. But it was actually one of the funnest projects. Everybody loved it. I mean, the women, the guys, it really kind of opened up all kinds of new conversations in the studio.
So everything from, geeky little headsets to all power to the people. So all the women of America salute you. I can't say this from personal experience, but it looks to be very user-friendly. Yves, why don't you tell us what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. And Linda is very, very humble in her introduction of herself and her role here, because Linda has had a huge role, in fact, in bringing design to the forefront. 2007 was still not a time when design was covered in mainstream magazines, in mainstream publications. And there was a little publication that was, rather than talking to the Fortune 500 CEOs, was talking to startups and was talking to people building small and exciting new companies and new ventures. And that was Fast Company. And they realized early on how much design was making a difference. And they carved out this little niche, which a lot of others followed since. This little niche of, basically speaking about design in all of its facets, from obviously, what design does for you, for a consumer, but also what it does for business. So thank you for that, because you're really a pioneer in the space. It's really nice to be here. I run an agency in San Francisco that has 65 amazing, talented designers of all stripes from all around the world. I've always wanted to come to the Aspen Ideas Festival, but For some reason, I never made it, so it's nice to be here. And in the last year, I've spoken probably 4 or 5 times. I don't do that many conferences about design, and every conferences I've gone to, every single one of them has been a business conference. A business conference where we speak about design. And this is completely new. And obviously, design is having a bit of a moment. The word design is used and overused. I'm going to try to see if the buttons work before I get started. Oh, yes, it works. Is used and overused and abused a little bit. So I wanted to make a talk about how design is truly changing, how there's phenomenal things happening in venture, in business, in technology, in our society in general that are putting design in this particular moment right now. And I wanted to start with this paraphrase of Stuart Brand, that design wants to be free. Design wants to be free in 2 ways. And really, it wants to be, if you really go to the word free, I'm talking about, in the broadest sense, meaning both attainable, affordable, something that people can get, popular, and also liberated. So let's start with a notion of liberated. The word design is not an adjective. The word design is not in the right place when you talk about designer homes or designer bags or designy things. In fact, when you use that adjective there, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see good design. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be something that actually has been designed under the true definition of design, which is design is about intent. It's the intent of what you're putting out in the world. And a good sort of smell test for design is, a good question to ask yourself is, does this design, does this thing that I'm using, this experience that I'm in, does it deliver on the intent? So let's move on to the notion of attainable design. Free means attainable. In the last 7 years, as Linda said, I've worked on an incredible project with Nicholas Negroponte. This project, started with a tremendous goal and a tremendous dream to bring technology to children around the world, children who don't have access to technology, and give them a laptop as a tool for learning. And it's uniquely designed for that environment, the developing world environment, and uniquely designed for these kids. And so, it's also costs, its cost as $100. So in every way it was designed, every feature, it was built really to be something entirely different and make a big change in the kids' lives. We are about days now away from, and this is a bit of a scoop, of releasing a tablet version of the One Laptop per Child called the Exo Tablet. And we've designed the user interface on this new version. And here the user interface is really about allowing kids to access their dream. What is it they want to be? I want to be an artist. I want to be an astronaut. That's how they start. And then they find software, games, resources, links to the science behind these things, or all of the kind of content you would be interested in. And so that's coming very, very shortly. Free means partnerships. Design has been stuck for years in the notion that it's a consulting type of job. in the notion that the way you get rewarded for doing this kind of work is by the hour. And as far as I can tell, great works of art throughout the centuries and great companies have not been built by the billable hour. And so what we did about 7 years ago is to create partnerships with people we really liked, people we thought were going to do great big things. And those partnerships, it means, we get royalties and equity. We essentially have skin in the game, but they're very, every deal is very different. So you have to be creative with that part as well. One of the ones we've done now for 11 years, I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Jawbone, and I've worked on every single product and piece of communication with them, is from headsets with Hossein Rahman early on, to wireless speakers, all the way today to the Up. The Up is an armband, a wristband, which keeps track of your sleep, keeps track of your daily routines, your physical activity, and gives you incredible feedback about, feedback and tips about how you can maybe do a little better. It helps you both realize, kind of the realities that maybe our modern lives put on us, and allows you to get new habits. The stories and the engagement with consumers and the app has been really incredible. And the other thing that you do when you work in partnership is you create a whole ecosystem. It's not just about doing one little part. It's about the user interface. It's about how you communicate, the brand, the logo, the packaging. It's about how you really deliver a full experience to people. Free means crowdfunded. So in the old days, when you wanted to build a new idea into a company, what you did is go to the bank and ask for money. Good luck with that. Or you would go to a large company and you would try to pitch your idea as part of something that maybe they could do. They could do with you. Good luck with that one. And in the last 20 years, it's become more common to speak to venture capitalists, to VCs. And if you have access to them, you can show them your product or your new approach to solving a problem. And if they like it, they will back you. But what happens if they don't like it? What do you do? This is the craziest, probably from that standpoint, the craziest project I've been involved with. So a year ago, we presented the idea that we're going to create a $99, again, a low-cost, attainable game console, and we wanted it to be open, meaning any developer, any gamer, any indie creator of games could just place their games on our platform. Nobody wanted to back us. I mean, nobody wanted to fund us. It's very hard to create hardware. It's very hard to create software. It's very hard to create a platform and to attract the thousands and thousands of people, both gamers, but also developers to something like this. So what we did is we went to Kickstarter, a crowdfunding site, and posted our project with some renderings and some notions about what this was going to be about. And what happened was unbelievable. We clicked the button, posted on there, and in an hour, we had $100,000. We had $100,000 in an hour. By the end of the first day, in the first 24 hours, we got $2 million. And by the end of our campaign, a lot more. And more importantly, we had 63,000 people who had already ordered the product, that were behind it, that wanted it. It was my first Kickstarter campaign. But very, very sort of dramatic moment. So we went out, and for the last 12 months, we built it, found manufacturers, developed unique technologies in the product, kept the design integral, used metals, used real materials, and created a very high quality product. On Tuesday of this week, it hit the shelves. We have shipped tens of thousands of units to our subscribers, to the early adopters, but it's now on the shelves, and it sold out on the first day. It sold out at Target and Amazon and GameStop and other places like that. But a key to the success of Ouya, and to some extent of the success of One Laptop Per Child, is this notion of being open, of not creating a closed environment and a closed platform. And so, the excitement that we saw with Ouya really is something that I hadn't anticipated to that level. But I did think about early on when we chose to partner and to become co-founder in Ouya. It reminded me of what happened in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when indie films, independent films, started to become interesting in LA and Hollywood. And what happened at that time, I think, very much busted the existing studio model and created a whole different genre of films. And I thought, well, maybe it's going to be the same for games. And so within this first year, we have 17,000 developers who have signed on to Ouya, to the Ouya platform, and we launched with 200 games. Again, because we're open, because you let people's creativity come in, participate with you, be a part of what it is that you make and who you want to be. So free equals popular. Again, I'll go back to this theme that so often design is seen as an exercise for the elite, both elitist when it comes to the designers themselves, and an exercise for the elite when it comes to the customers of design. Design at its inception was really about inventing ways to create function and beauty in a way that was going to provide goods, all kinds of everyday goods to the masses. What I've learned is really the contrary. What I've learned is the more you make something magical and attainable, the more you deliver something that people want, the happier they are, the more successful the project and the product, in my mind. So what do people want? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? So Linda already told you what this is, but this is Jimmy Jane. This is a line of vibrators. They're made with high quality materials. They're durable. They work well, and they're warranted. This is an industry that didn't have design before this company. This is an industry that was doing cheap and not very, not quality. Not products I would recommend.
Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back? Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back?
Well, satisfaction, there's a lot of different ways to look at satisfaction, but certainly warranted. This is the first product of its type. There was a whole line of them, but this is the one that became a bestseller. Rock and roll. This is a Jambox, a little speaker that when we launched 3.5 years ago was one of the first to offer a wireless experience of your media, of your music on your phone. One that really didn't look like any other speakers out there, and one that had a long battery life. And suddenly people got away from the earbuds, from the sort of selfish experience of music and sound, and started to share the sound and music more and more. What happened with this is it really caught on. 3.5 years later, the Jambox is still the best-selling, is now the best-selling speaker in the market. And we'll talk a little bit more about the aesthetic, but it was really about bringing new materials, new types of craft, new types of self-expression to this particular marketplace. Oh, I skipped drugs. We'll let pharma deal with that. So, different. In the 90s, when I started my career in the Bay Area and in San Francisco, there's really two ways to look at design. There was really a binary approach to design. Either you were going to try to do something in the average, something that really was similar to what your competition was doing, something that was within the same price point, with similar features, with often a similar aesthetic, something that wasn't going to stand out. And usually, what you were using for that were a lot of focus group tests, focus group tests that apparently helped you make sure that that you weren't going to change things too much and scare your customer too much. And then the other way to do it was the Apple way. But essentially, people would come to us and say, well, we want to be like Apple, or we want to be like everybody else. Again, a binary process. I think this essentially was a completely wrong thesis, and one that's changed so much today, because what people are looking for today are actually, people are looking for change. They're looking for designers, they're looking for entrepreneurs that bring them change. They embrace it. And this whole silliness of focus group tests is really something that none of the companies I work with use. Apple's never used it, but when is really a thing of the past. 3 weeks ago, we launched another venture design. Bless you. Another venture design called August, and what August is a break from the past. What it's proposing is a little robot on the inside of your door that essentially opens the door for you. So you don't need to use your keys. These sharp pieces of metal that we put in our pockets and that we've been using for centuries, we're trying to get rid of them. And here we're showing a user interface and the smart door lock. But at the same, at the same time, what I'm really interested in is invisible interfaces. So you will walk to your door, and you won't have to do anything you won't have to pull your phone out of your pocket. You won't have to open anything. The door will unlock. You walk in, and it auto unlocks right behind you. So we're excited about this one, and we actually took 22,000+ reservations on that as well. So free is this empowered sort of creativity, enables this empowered creativity we see everywhere. Design isn't just something we appreciate anymore. It used to be something you would just look outside, or you would look at other people, you would look at designers, and you would say, I appreciate design. It's something that we all do. It's something that we all do today. You take pictures, you post them on Instagram, you put blogs, you review things. A lot of people are starting to print objects at home. The 3D printer is becoming more and more common, for example. So we want to participate. We want to be a part of a world of brainstorming, a world of creativity, a world of ideas. And so, we want to do this all the time. And this is an interesting project that has come out of our own need at Fuse Project, but also out of a long-term relationship we've had with Herman Miller, the office furniture manufacturer. And the idea here is to encourage collaboration, to create collaboration wherever it happens, by essentially giving tools to people to collaborate on an ongoing basis. So every table here that you can see, every desk has what we call a social seat, a seat next to it that allows you to come over and sit down and have a conversation with someone and exchange someone. Why? Well, what we found out is 70% of meetings happen at the desk, yet no desks have ever been designed to do that. And it's really interesting because the last few days we've had this in our own office as a prototype. We've lived with it for a while. And in the last few days, Some of the desks don't have these because there is a trickle of them coming in as production is happening. And I find myself on my knees. I find myself awkwardly sitting on the corner of somebody's desk. I mean, it's the most obvious thing that you know that is right in front of us and that we haven't addressed. So I'll show you a little bit how public office landscape works. And as I said, this new type of seating, the social desk, is a modular piece. You can assemble it to be like a cafe type of configuration. You can add panels to it. You can turn it into a lounge type of space. This is a cute, fun little animation there. You can add desks, again, to that same configuration. It's very, very modular. Meeting areas, brainstorm areas. It can be a meeting place, or it can be a meeting place in the middle of desks, in the middle of what's called a benching configuration. You can see there's 4 people there that can meet. They're all working there. They don't need to go to a conference room. They don't need to go far away in order to have that exchange. And the configurations are multiple. This is a different arrangement of desks based on storage. And you can also build very easy rooms. So let's say this is a brainstorm or review room, and they would come in all types. But what's important here is that in our offices, in the environments that we go to every day, something has to happen, because if it doesn't, why are we going to work? We don't need to go to work. We have Skype, we have our technologies, we have email, we have video conferencing, we have all these things. So there's really no need to go into the office. The only really important thing that happens in the office is the human one, is the people one. It's the exchange one. It's the let's get together and talk about this, brainstorm about this. And this is what this system is about. So all these elements, to me, all these changes are really, are really significant, really significant for me. Because yes, I've gone to all the conferences. Obviously, I'm a big participant in the sort of Silicon Valley and San Francisco excitement around design. And yes, design makes money. We know that. Steve Jobs has given us that credibility. We have established that, but it's not where every great designer or every maker even really starts. We start with ideas, and by default, what good design does, what free design does as well, is envision the future and accelerate the adoption of new ideas. That is the true role of design. And in this new century, this new century is really about disruption, about change, about embracing it at every level. And so designers, coders, entrepreneurs are challenging notions, for example, that sustainability is expensive. This is a clever little bag, which we did for Puma, and it allows you, you ship shoes around the world, 80 million of shoes with this new system, which is 65%, uses 65% less energy and materials than a standard shoebox. And it's done at the same cost, so it can be done at scale. It challenges notions that, that technology is hard to use and complex. It challenges notions that quality is exclusive or expensive or hard to get. And it challenges the notion that tomorrow isn't already here. So it's a cycle, and we're in a good cycle right now because good design attracts better design. The reason why we're all consumers are so excited about design is they've become critics. They're exposed to it. They're a part of it, and it's a good cycle because it's a cycle where everyone, consumers and designers, are becoming more free to create. And I'm very happy to be a part of that. Thank you.
So we don't have a lot of time, but there are a couple questions I wanted to make sure that we talked about before we threw it out to the audience for their questions. I mean, your portfolio is so vast and so diverse, from, you know, little tech things to laptop computers for kids in Peru and everything. What areas do you think are still being shorted by design? Where is design still absent?
Well, so many areas. I mean, if you use the filter of sustainability, for example, there's so much to be redesigned in that area. But there's one in particular that I'm quite passionate about, which is the health environment. You know, the health industry, the pharma industry. There's so much in healthcare that's completely undesigned, completely unconsidered. And there is a really interesting moment right now where new technologies are coming in and are allowing you to self-diagnose, or allowing you to take your meds at home, or to calibrate treatments in a much more personalized way. Between algorithms and new sensors, when these two things are coming together, and they are coming together right now, we're going to see a revolution when it comes to how we experience health and healthcare on our own terms. Our level of tolerance is already low, with a healthcare system, and that means newcomers are going to come in and swoop in and give us the kind of solutions that we're looking for, both reliable but also very human-centric.
It was interesting. I covered the second annual Health and Wellness Hackathon at the MIT Media Lab in January, which was a pretty amazing hackathon. It was about 11 days, which is much longer than a hackathon usually lasts. And the idea was to come up with products that were essentially ready for funding. And the things that these guys came up with, not guys, women as well, and really along the lines that you're saying, if you're a diabetic, how to track your blood sugar, but also something that has an interface with your doctor so that he or she can be monitoring it, and at the same time you're seeing things for epileptics, things for heart disease. The future was sort of unbelievable when you see what that opportunity there.
And it's something that we all need, we all want. So I mean, there's insurance companies want it. I mean, there's an incredible amount of opportunity right now, and just good design is going to happen in this space.
Well, I have to credit Michael Graves too. After his accident, he also is spending a lot of time redesigning the physical space, not just sort of an app kind of thing, but for people who are disabled, because that's a huge need as well. You're in the heart of Silicon Valley. Tell us, what are they talking about out there when it comes to design? You're always a few years ahead of the rest of the country.
Well, what's happened in Silicon Valley is unless you have a real creative / designer on the team, somebody who is going to show who's going to build with you a consumer proposition and an engaging experience for whatever it is that you're building. These days, you're less likely to get funded. So that's a 180-degree change
for sure
compared to.
So you show up at Hale and Door and with your little project and try to pitch them, and if you don't have a designer on the team, they tell you go find one.
If you're trying to execute a real sort of human consumer experience out there, you need to come out with something that's going to be fully integrated throughout. Great software, great hardware, great point of sale, great name for a company. I mean, all these things have to come together. Great engagement online, etc. That's what consumers expect. I mean, the bar is up here, right? The bar is, you have to be as good as the best out there, or consumers aren't really going to give you, their time.
Why is that, Yves? Why have our expectations for design jumped exponentially from what they were 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, you know, to a great extent, it's because we have design on us right now, all of us. Actually, it's good. There's not too many people on their phones. I was on a panel the other day where I did this line, and like everybody was like, sorry. So we are experiencing design right there, whether it's the app we use every day, whether it's the product, how it fits in our lives. We are critics of these things. But we also experience this at retail. We also experience this at the service level, at the packaging and the outboxing level. We experience design now in a way that we really start complaining about it publicly, right? On Twitter, I know you did that today. On Twitter and in other forums,
that's right.
You go out, you put your opinion out. If it's not good enough, it's not good enough.
Call them out.
You're not gonna, you're gonna let people know.
United, get with the seat design because it sucks. I was a cripple. I got off that plane, and don't you know, I went to Twitter and complained bitterly.
Of course you did.
Of course I did, and I'm not the only one.
So people react about design, and
Right.
they want it to be better. They want it to be right. They want it to be right for them. And so we're becoming actually a very sophisticated society when it comes to design. And it's a bit of a surprise. I think it's exposure. We're exposed to it all day long.
I mean, at Fast Company, I say good design is good business, but in actual fact, if you're at Best Buy and people are bringing back products because they can't figure out how to work them, mm-hmm. and you have to pay for the returns, then something's happening to your bottom line.
I know.
So
here's how you incentivize a designer. You don't, as a designer, you don't get royalties on the returns.
Aha.
So, you have these line items and these big amounts, and then there's subtractions. That makes you more, more conscious, more of the entire experience. You have to get it right all the way through.
So, how much do we credit Apple for changing the game for everybody?
Apple has certainly absolutely changed the game. And I do encounter this problem a little bit less now, but I did encounter it a lot in the knots, which was, there was a kind of a tunnel vision that the only way to do good design was the way Apple was doing it. And so you essentially either became an imitator or somebody who didn't care. And I think it's changing now, where there's companies building their own identity, their own way to do it. Their own way to connect with consumers, their own way to do customer service or to present their products at retail. There's more uniqueness now, but for a time, a lot of people in business they couldn't see another way,
right?
Which was an interesting moment. But I think now we're really in a place where there's a lot of companies doing interesting work.
And so, I mean, obviously, we all mourn the death of Steve Jobs, but the fact that Apple has not been as robust in the market since he's been gone, has that changed our perception of them being the paradigm of all good design?
Well, I don't think, people who've been around, Apple and who've kind of looked at the company for a long time, I don't think those people who supported the company for a long time, I don't think they ever looked at the stock price. If they did, they would have kind of gotten off that boat a long time ago. That said, I think the expectations for Apple are enormous. They've done a few nice products in the last year and a half, 2 years. But they're refreshes. They're just they're evolutions. And what we expect out of Apple are revolutions. What we expect out of Apple is the next big thing. Are our expectations, too big? Is it possible for somebody to do the next big thing every year? I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think that's realistic as an expectation. That said, that's what we've been waiting for right. a couple of years.
I want to. In one moment, I'll throw it out here to the audience, but I was wondering, what's on your wish list of things that you still want to tackle? You've done some, and one other thing, what does UYA stand for? You promised you'd tell me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So Ouya, we were struggling with the game. So a lot of these new companies, these new products, we name them. We need to find a way that is a good descriptor for the product and the company. And we were struggling with that. I think it had been 2 or 3 weeks. We were working on this. We didn't get to anything good. And we were maybe a couple of weeks away from the Kickstarter launch, and we didn't have the name of the company. We didn't have a good name for it. So designers, usually the intensity kind of augments as you get closer to the deadline. It can be good. It can be stressful too. So one idea that came, we kept talking about the open universe, how Ouya was going to be about this open universe of games and creativity. So in a way, I had these 2 letters. I wrote down these 2 letters in a notebook, O-U. And then I was looking for a sound, for like a release sound, like a victory sound, like you know, and yeah, you know, Ouya, you know, sort of the YA came out, and I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Does anybody own this in the gaming space? No. There wasn't anything significant out there called Ouya, but I noticed 6 months later when you listen to little children playing, you know, they say that word a lot. They go like, Ouya, ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, so it must have come from hanging around with little kids, but it became, everybody, we all loved it, like immediately. The CEO, Julie Ehrman, loved it immediately. And no, it was one of these aha moments.
And
for
when
sure.
you saw that $8 million on Kickstarters, it was, oh yeah.
Exactly,
Oh,
we did a lot of those jokes.
I'm sure. Okay, wish list for yourself to design?
So people always ask you the question when you're a designer, you know, what's the next thing you want to you want to work on? And for me, it tends to be more, I tend to think more about problems. For example, I think about this problem that we're so much on our screens. Our screens are such a, you know, they've sort of taken over a portion of our everyday lives in a way that seems a bit immature. And so what is the next level of user interface? So we do a lot of user interface, user interaction at Fuse Project as well. And I'm thinking more and more about the invisible interface, the things that I can know about my environment, the things I want to know about that are basically told to me or indicated to me in an invisible fashion. And so I'm thinking a lot about invisible interfaces. How many things can I do with my phone without turning it on?
Like the lock?
Like the lock, for example. So it's become kind of a fascinating, something that keeps me up at night. You know, obviously there is amazing changes also in the car industry. And I've been driving an electric car for a while, and it's truly what you will be able to do with a car, whether it's driverless or whether it's, you know, it has the capabilities of electric, are going to change the way we design it. We design this product. It hasn't been done yet. We're still very much designing this product as if, you know, with the past, you know, in our minds. Right. But I'm interested in how we design this product with the future in mind.
We really don't have much time. Please wait for the person with the microphone to reach you in the dead center. Well, okay, you next.
I'm off center. Yeah, I have a question. You didn't touch on something I've been wondering about, and that is the future of the user manual.
Of user-made?
Of user manuals.
Oh, user manuals.
Intuitive design.
I don't think it has a future.
I bought a car the other day, and it came with about 3 inches of instructions. And so the guy said, well, you need to read all this stuff about the car. And I said, I have no intention on reading anything about this car. If it's not intuitive, you know, I'll probably never use it. And it struck me when I said that, they were just so accustomed now to not reading the instructions because of, I think, very intuitive design.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because we're not accustomed to it or basically we don't want to do it. I mean, there's nothing in there for us. There's a lot more that's possible with a car once you have a screen in the car. You know, the car can feel your presence or understand what it is that you're trying to do or give you a walkthrough or teach you in a sense. And we should take more advantage of the cars, the sensors in the car, the screens in the car, the sound that comes out of the car to try to teach you this rather than by reading. I mean, how many paragraphs can you remember of this functionality in the car, right? You're not going to think about how, you know, where the fuel the fuel opening, where the gaskets are until you need them. So why doesn't the car tell you, oh yeah, you're running out of gas, or you stopped at a gas station? GPS should be able to tell you that. Here's where it is. I never know. I've had a car, before I got my electric car, I had the same car for 12 years. I never remembered which side of the car, the gas tank was. But why doesn't it just tell me so, or help me to get there?
Next, right here.
Hi, can you tell us, remember back when you were a kid and think about the first thing you ever designed, or the first problem you ever solved with design and what it was and how you felt about it?
Sure. So nothing's more interesting when you're a kid than Legos. There's a little boy here. It's my boy, actually, using Legos. Much more interesting than his dad on stage. But that's, like playing with small things, having to assemble them, having to take them apart, being able to build, your own stories through Legos. Certainly, I remember being extremely meticulous, and people always ask me what's left of the Swiss in you, because I grew up in Switzerland and moved to California when I was in my 20s. It's probably just wanting to kind of put these Legos right together with all the right colors and whatnot. But later on, when I was 15 years old and when I decided I wanted to be a designer, the first thing I designed is I combined two of my passions. In the spirit of ideas come, when you combine them, it was skiing and windsurfing. So I made a contraption that allowed me to windsurf on frozen lakes in the winter, that was the first thing I built in my parents' basement. I also liked sewing a lot. Actually, I took sewing classes. In Switzerland, we have a lot of courses we can pick, and so I was sewing, making clothes for myself, I think. Or my dolls, or my toys. Those are things you do as a kid. If you have opportunities to build things, to make things, I think maybe it influences you later in life.
Yes.
As you are saying that design is going to be free, and I think that's how it looks like, what do you think the future of copyrights is going to look like?
I ask myself this every day when I see the hundreds of rip-offs of our own projects that are out there. We copyright everything we do. We patent everything we do. In some places it works, in some others it doesn't. I have to be honest. I think there's good sides to copywriting, and there is bad sides to copywriting. There's been a lot of discussions about copyright trolls and firms that are specialized in trying to own a space that they had really nothing to do in creating. And it's become a really big problem in innovation and in Silicon Valley. That said, copyright is important in many other ways. When you have a brand, a logo, a pattern, a new functional thing that you're doing, it helps you as a startup. You're building value, through copyright as well. So I think, to me, like specifically in my field, I think there's two types of things. Are you familiar with Thingiverse? Thingiverse is a website attached to MakerBot. MakerBot is one of the companies that sells you very cheap stereolithography machines, replicators essentially. You put a 3D files in there, you put a cup in there, and 3 hours later a cup is grown. You can do that for very little money these days. And what they did is they created a community where you could put anything you wanted, any object, any 3D file you came up with, and people can use it. And I think there's room for that. There is room for, of course, you have to have some controls. Some shapes belong to people, and you probably don't want to steal them. But other shapes are put willingly there. And we, for example, the Ouya console, we put it on Thingiverse because we wanted people to print their own version of the outside cover of Ouya. That's because we have this open mindset there. But I do think that when it's used, when it's much more personal, kind of single use, it's fine in my, in my world. When it's used for commercial purposes and somebody is starting to copy you and try to steal your identity to either confuse consumers about whose product this is, or simply because they have zero imagination and just think that your crazy idea is the only thing out there, then that's clearly a problem.
Okay, this will have to be the last question if we can make it quick because we're really at the end of our time.
This will be quick. Obviously, you're in great demand, and I'm sure that there are times where you have the opportunity to work with clients that you choose not to. I'm just wondering, are there ideal conditions that you think should exist for you to feel that you can really do your great work, your greatest work?
Absolutely. And that's not just for me. That's for other people. The great conditions you want to create for any designer to work with you is a level of trust and a level of freedom, but mostly a level of feeling like a partnership, of going into an adventure with somebody. Things aren't going to work out at every review. Things aren't going to be great all the time. But you're committing yourself. You're committing your company. You are turning over some of your power. You are turning over some of your influence to someone else. So these conditions have to be in. The worst is the typical story is you hire a great designer or a great architect, and you art direct them so much that in the end they do their worst work for you. I mean, that's the worst outcome out of the investment that you're making. But you see that a lot. And so I think, if you look at a company like Herman Miller, they've been doing this for 70 years. They've worked with some of the masters throughout the last 70 years. And they commit themselves to those designers. They even use a word which I try to sort of throw it in once in a while when I have business meetings, which is they throw this word abandonment. They abandon themselves to the vision of their designer. But that means being very confident about what you're good at and letting somebody else take over. I think that would be, that's the number one criteria.
All right, I think we're going to have to end. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.